They said they worked the hell out of him. But I'm glad that we had that conversation because the video that I was referring to earlier today was really some young cat, two cats talking about the impact that hip hop has had on the black community and what extensively that means in terms of like the culture of drill rap.
Crack as a way to break down the hood in the 80s. They're using music as a way to break down our communities now. It's digital crack, right? So you can't name a Jewish drill rapper saying, yo, I'm a kike, spin the block, bend the kike, kill a kike. You can't find a Chinese motherfucker talking about, yo, konnichiwa, kill it, yeah, yellow man, kill, yeah, kill. Fuck out of here. We the only culture that creates self-hate, destructive music, and we promote it and market it. It's about self-hate. It's systematic racism. You understand? So drill means kill. So how you think creates how you feel. How you feel becomes an emotion. That emotion becomes a vibration. That vibration becomes a magnet that attracts things to you. Life or death is of the tongue. So we only talk about death. If you're an op, you're not an op. You're a decimal creator. You're not a nigga. You're an inventor of math. You're not a fuck boy. You create the internet.
Do I think hip hop has had a dangerous effect on the black community? I think it's an unfair question. I think it's unfair because it puts all of the blame on predominantly black artists, predominantly poor black artists who are trying to get themselves out of poverty-stricken environments. Blaming them and placing all of the blame on them, I think, is wildly unfair and leaves out a number of areas of, for context purposes. It lets off continuously these record companies. I think there is less than 5 major record labels. I wouldn't even say 3, possibly major record labels who own all of this shit, right? Who are sitting behind their desk, usually predominantly white males who run or operate these companies, who are taking these young brothers off of the street and putting piles of actual cash on a table in a conference room and say, hey, if you continue to do that right there, that thing, this is all yours. And I think us levying all of the responsibility onto the artists is unfair. Now, here's where it gets more tricky. Do I think the artists deserve a level of culpability here? Yes, but I think that's where it gets a little difficult. Again, I know when I've been in places where I have been broke, and I'm not talking about I got a couple dollars till payday. I'm talking about I have nothing and in need of a lot.
Yes,
the
sir.
lengths that and the depths that I would go to
Willing to
in
go.
order
Yes, sir.
to get something. So when I'm talking about poverty, I'm not talking about folks who are working class, living paycheck to paycheck. I'm talking about folks who have nothing and will do whatever they can to get something. But again, I hate that rap is the rap that gets that hip hop, that form gets the publicity, and actual authentic hip hop, right, gets a subgenre label, backpack hip hop or something, that whole connotation of backpack is like, it's out of the picture. It's not as prevalent in your face. So I take issue with that. So I hear what these young brothers are saying, but I would love for us to go after capitalism first, then these record companies second.
The industry that has been built off of hip hop culture has been both beneficial and detrimental to the black community. In more recent years, clearly, other forms of it, other more recent forms, more derivative and even reductive forms that have manifested in the culture have, distilled themselves down to their most base elements to attract and secure a listener. And it's often, and it's always the same, usually the same play, and that's black trauma and pain. The easiest and cheapest form of entertainment that white people can digest without guilt. And You know, I can't. I as someone who has just witnessed the culture turn 50, you know, my
It's a lot
mindset,
of conversations.
my mindset, has been introduced to elements of Afro futurism in a lot of the
Yes.
artists a lot of the young artists I follow,
Mhm.
and really radical ideas that and textures and contexts that show a true sense of progress. But when I see forms like this almost come out in response as a knee-jerk response to any sense of progressive Black thinking, like, oh, we're over here too, being animals still,
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
provide
yeah.
balance.
He mentioned Fabio. Fabio dropped a whole album that not too many people talked about that had very little drill on this particular mainstream album, right? Because it was his ability, his desire to move away to the point where he made a song with Alicia Keys remaking New York, New York, that he hoped would catch on to some mainstream success for the ability to move away from. So
Move out
these
of
young
that
brothers
circle.
are
Yeah.
intentionally using drill rap as a way of getting into the game with the
But
the intention of getting out of it.
if
But the way drill
if they
rap
survive, if they
is
survive,
cultivated, they're
you
so
know,
connected to the block still that it's just like
I mean,
Yeah.
the beef, like the beef stuff is like
it's
too
real.
literal. It's way too
Yeah,
literal with them. Like they're naming names, dates,
yeah.
weapons. You know what I'm saying? Intent.
No, but I think everything that you guys said is spot on. I think the most salient part of that is the fact that L was like the question in and of itself does come across as extremely unfair. And this is the reason why I say that, man. Hip hop music, Black entertainment, Black culture is probably the most exported music across the globe. When you go to different countries from El Salvador to Japan to wherever you may go, they all have their version, variation of this
Of what we've
gangster,
done.
violent, this type of rap music. But I have never, ever heard anyone levy the ills of that country or their youth
On the
on
music.
that music, period. If you remember during the late 90s, early 2000s, even into the mid 2000s, white rock music had a lot to do with a dark theme: suicide, drug use, alcohol
Mhm.
abuse, those sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not to this day seen one think piece that said that the ills of white youth and culture was because of rock music. But every time we turn around, and I'm not saying that what these young cats are saying is wrong, because what's obvious is obvious. But to make it seem as though we are solely the only people benefiting from telling, quote unquote, telling our life stories or giving us some level of artistic license is wildly, wildly
Wildly
unfair.
unfair. Mhm.
It is.
I don't, that the only person that I think that I've ever seen be blamed, and I think the whole country blamed this one singular person, even though he was only one person of the genre, was Marilyn Manson.
Right.
And I think that's really because he did a lot because of the shock value. But there were tons of other artists doing the exact same thing, but no one blamed the genre. They blamed this
For people's
individual.
behavior. For people's
They
behavior.
blamed the individual. They didn't blame the whole genre. But every time we turn around, and like I said, I don't have nothing against these young cats that are saying it, but it's always very easy to get clicks, to get likes, and to spread Black people telling other Black people that we're the cause of our own falling apart. We're the reason why shit is just completely rot in our culture. And then what do you have? You end up having the Tucker Carlsons and the Laura Ingrams picking up sound bites like this, and then they use it on their evening shows to be like, hey, even these Black kids are saying the same thing. It's the culture. It's the people. It's don't let them fool you about it being anything else. It's innate in these monkeys and these savages for why they do what they do.